So East End boys. I was on fire for new ground. I didn't know anybody in Alberta. Jeff Marshall refers me to Bill Betts. I end up climbing with Bill Betts on a Sunday, and we do Missionaries Callwall in Smeagol. And so I had mentioned to Bill, do you know of any new routes on Yam? Like, you know of any line? I'm still learning the crag here. What can you tell me? He says, come with me. So after we had climbed Smeagol that day, we walked over underneath the East End boys, and Bill points the route out to me and says, look at that line. And I looked up at it, and I knew about Yam, and I knew I'd been on Astro Yam, and I knew that the challenge is on new routes on Yam is there's no gear. You got to drill off of hooks. So that's the hard part. So we're standing under East End boys. They're the line that's East End boys. And I go, Bill, it's a crack line. He goes, I know. But Bill, it's a crack line. That means there's gear. And at that time in my limestone climbing career, I believed there was no limestone crack on the planet that I could not get up with a full rack. Okay? I might not free the whole thing, but give me an aid rack and I'm going to get up it. So I'm like so excited. Bill, it's a crack line. We got to go try this. So the next weekend we went out, and interestingly, Bill had been on the route before. So after Urs had established, it was the first pitch of the yellow edge, it branches out to the left. Urs had already established the second pitch and the first little bit of the third pitch. Bill had been on the second pitch with another partner and retreated a few years before. So he just says, okay, look, I've climbed the first pitch myself. Why don't you take it? Sure. So I climbed the first pitch of the yellow edge. And then he says, yeah, I heard this pitch has been freed. Yeah, I heard it's 510. It's 510. Freed at 510. Okay, so I head up. Yeah, okay, it was already been freed. Head up, and I do a couple of I got some gear, and I do a couple of moves, and they're hard. I'm like, okay, these might be the hardest moves I've tried all summer yet. It's June, right? But mid 11, like it's mid 11. So I climb back down. I go, Bill, how hard did you say this thing is? Oh, it's 510. It's 510. Okay. So bang, up I go. It's not 510. It's 511. I free climb all the way up to the last little overhang, and it's a loose bulge. So I put in a number 3 friend, and I hang off it. I use A0 and or maybe it was A1, can't remember. Hung on it. Probably did I pull on it? I probably pulled on it, and then up to the station. And Bill comes up. Good job, man. Good job. And we knew it's steep, and we're carrying a pack with all kinds of crap. So actually, Bill seconded that pitch with the pack, and it's so steep. Like it's like, okay, no, that's too slow. The second needs Jumar, right? So, okay. So now third pitch, and Bill's like, well, you're doing a great job. Why don't you keep going? Sure, yeah. And I'm in my element. So there was a couple of stew-by bolts, so I'm on aid. I placed 2 points of aid on wired stoppers after that. And I'm looking up and I'm like, I yelled down to Bill, I'm going to start free climbing now. Okay. And I'm thinking, and Bill had said people had backed off, right? I'm thinking, why did they back off? This actually isn't that bad. So I carried on. There's the big loose Superman block, I get a number 3 friend in. It's crab. So I do the 80-pound, 90-pound shakeout on it. 'Cause I'm getting pumped. It's hard. Like, okay. So anyway, then leave the block and continue free climbing up to the station. And Bill Jumer's up. Good job, man. right on. And Bill's keen. And there's no like, the dynamic with Bill and I was all about going up. There was no fear. We were both excited. And because and this is only our second time climbing together. Right, so we're still not really sure. We're kind of getting to know each other, and so Bill says, "Look, you're doing a great job. You know what? Just keep going." Sure, awesome, great. And I got my tape gloves on, and the next pitch is like a 511C crack pitch. So I'm jamming and placing shit. I'm flying. I'm loving it. It's a crack line, right? Like, this is gold. And I get up into the fist crack, which is right at the crux, maybe a couple moves below, and I'm in the fist crack. And I was just styling. So I had placed the number 4 in the bottom of the fist crack. But my next piece below that was a ways down. Because I was cruising. I could see the crack coming. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's bomber, right? Bang. So I'm up in the fist crack, and oh, shit. My fists are creeping out. And the friend's down at my feet. And so I yell down to Bill, watch this here. Because I'm going to come off. And I'm thinking, maybe I can grab the friend on the way by. Like, if I can maybe, and I was strong enough in those days, I had the confidence. Anyway, so they creep, I'm hanging on, I can't move. If I pull this hand out, this one's going to slip. So it's like a way, okay, I'm good. Okay, Bill, I'm coming off, watch me, right? It's like, and I go to grab I miss. Anyway, rope comes tight, friend pulls. And I fly down the crag. And I pass Bill. Not by much, but he's about at the roof line, and I'm below him, upside down. And the piece gear eventually held, and the friend is now at my waist, right, because it slid down the rope. I'm upside down, and I pull myself up, and Bill's right there. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and I go, and I'm thinking, okay, he might be gripped, right? I'm thinking, so I go, are you okay, Bill? And he looks at me and he goes, I'm okay. Are you okay? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm okay. I unclip, put the friend on my harness, still got the rack, look at him and go, well, I guess I'd better get back up there before I get scared. So it's like an 80-footer, right? Like total airtime. I'm unhurt. And up I go, back up. Like, okay, you know what? The friend pulled. I'm going to protect this a little more conservatively. There's gear there, but I just hadn't put it in. So I place some stoppers and I make it through. Well, not yet. That's up higher, right? That's at the station. I have to aid the last bit. It gets to be hard 511 in the upper bit below the roof. I place 7 wired stoppers, tie them into them with spider web. Okay, Bill, come on up, right? Bill's jumaring up the pitch, right? And it's overhanging up to that belay. We're under the big roof. And Bill's jumaring up. And we'd started calling each other Jimmy, by then. And he's like, Jimmy. He goes, that was amazing. That was so awesome. He goes, if only you knew how many guys have backed off this route. And I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, no, so many guys have backed off. He hadn't told me. He's like, oh, yeah, there was guys even had named this thing. And everybody backed off way down there, like at the beginning of the third pitch. I'm like, you fucking sandbagger. He hadn't told me. He was staying quiet. He says, well, I didn't want to put you off. You were doing really well. I just didn't want to fuck with your brain on this thing. And so he comes up. I've got 7 wires in. All in, spider web. And they're all over, because there's no crack. Like, it's incipient cracks, right? It's all over hell. But I grew up doing this shit, right? So I'm good with it, right? For a downward pull. And so Bill, and I'm looking and I'm going, and I'm clipped all into it, right? I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a bit of a challenge to do the changeover up here. And there's not a foothold. There's a 5'11" smear for a foothold right there. And I'm like, and I'm looking at the roof going, okay, it's going to be aid for sure. So I go, so Bill, have you done much aid? And he looks at me, he looks up at the roof, he looks back at me, and he starts laughing his head off. And he says, Steve, don't ask me that question now, right? Killing himself laughing. I'm like, why is he laughing? But what? I'm like, okay, whatever, okay, so no problem. We're going to have to do the changeover. So we're, clipping and unclipping and doing all the stuff. And he's got me on belay and then I'm about to take off and he goes, do you mind if I put a bolt in here? And, I was aware of the psychological stability of partnerships and harmony in scenarios like that. So if your partner makes a suggestion, it's not a big deal. Don't argue with them. Just, this is delicate. New ground. We can damage the balance here. So, okay, sure, Bill. So I had the bulkhead, so I hand him the bulkhead. I give him the bulkhead and say, well, do you mind? And I knew it's a lot of work. You kind of get a bit of a pump and stuff. I said, well, do you mind if you drill it? I'm feeling a little pumped. Well, sure, no problem. So he fucking pounds it in. And it was all he gets it in and the redhead self-driving. He gets a quick draw and he clips the quick draw straight in, right to his harness and double beaners. He's like, okay, I'm good. So, okay, sure. So off I go through the big roof. It's A3, it's loose blocks.
You took 2 stoppers out of the 7 stopper range.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So Bill puts the, okay, sorry. He puts the bolt in, he clips into the bolt and goes, okay, I'm good. And so I see that and okay, well, I take 3 wires out of the station. I go, well, Bill, and Bill's his eyes are big and his kind of jaw drops a bit. And I'm like, well, you got the bolt now. You don't need these. I need these upstairs, right? And he's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, he couldn't say anything. Yeah, okay, you're right. So I take the wire. Anyway, so then up I go, which was a comical moment. Up I go. I'm going through the big roof, and I am loving it. And I'm 3 or 4, knife blades up, and Bill, the way Bill will describe it as, you had the crudest aid system that maybe the world has ever seen. Big oval beaners and bunch of beaners. He's like, but you knew how to do it, man. You were efficient at it. Anyway, so I'm buzzing through the great roof, and I am where I want to be. And I Bill's down. I go yell down to Bill. I go, Bill. And my system involved oval, and an oval, in an oval. So when you're changing the weighting of them, they're jumping around and they're making a snapping sound. So out of the corner of my eye, and I was used to that. That's what happened. I didn't fuss on it. So the carabiners are jumping and snapping around, making noise. And then I'd see, Bill would flinch and lock off the rope because he was thinking the pin pulled. And so he'd be like, oh, no, he's good. After holding the 80-foot fall, right, 10 minutes before, right? So I'm up there, I look down, I go, hey, Bill, I got to say, man, I feel like I'm back at Mount Nemo on my home crags. Because I used to go out in winter and rope solo these big roofs just for fun, doing new routes. I said, I feel like I'm at my home crag on Mount Nemo. Bill's like, man, did I ever pick the right guy for this route? So anyway, carry on. So I get through the overhang. I get up to the first good number 3 friend, and then I charge up to the belay ledge, maybe 50 feet higher. And later I thought, that was 5'7", because I smoked it. Okay. And later, 11 years later, when Andy and I were up there, and he's like, yeah, Steve, that was 5'10". I had called the pitch 5'7" A3. So anyhow, kind of funny comical moment. And then Bill led the sixth pitch. I led the seventh pitch. We climbed the whole thing in 12 hours. And that might have been car to car in 12 hours. Like, it was ridiculous. We were back in Calgary having a cheeseburger at Sam's Deli on 4th Street by like 7 o'clock in the afternoon. We're having a beer and the sun's shining still because it's the middle of June, like right now. And what an amazing day. The climbing on East End Boys is overhanging, or it has an overhang in it. The climbing is jamming, stemming. There's a bit of face climbing. There's some jug tugging through the big roof. Hand jamming, stemming. Some great traditional climbing. There really is a mix. What it doesn't have is, thin face climbing on gray rock.
Is it hard to place gear on East End Boys? Is it strenuous and physical to place the gear on East End Boys?
Yes, it is. It is because
Can
it's
you
so.
say that for me?
Yeah. I mean, East End Boys is burly. It's strenuous. I mean, you're going to be hanging there by jams or finger locks trying to get gear in. So strenuous to get the gear in. You got to be fit, and you got to have, some ambition to move upward. And if you're not comfortable on overhanging ground, it's going to be very, very intimidating.